Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Christopher. For those of you who don't know me, this is our client, Ms. Kutsia. She's a stakeholder. She's a South African Police Service officer, and she brought forward the app and the whole idea behind it. So everything we've done is hopefully going to portray that. Our app's name is Citizen Alert, and we are the Attainables as a group. Just quickly before we start, please make sure that your phones are switched on to silent. Just we don't want any disruptions throughout the presentation. As well as if you have any questions, the reason for the notepads is just if you could write them down and if we could have them just at the end, just so that we don't throw off any of the presenters during their presentation. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit of an introductional overview. We'll be looking at our team overview, our team contract that we established, our problem statement, our metaphor matrix, as well as the 4 key objects, our POC and triangles. I'll then hand over to Davita, who will be taking you through our sprint retrospectives, our problems and solutions, as well as our easy backlog and our burn down charts, and just have a look at that. We'll then hand over to Bandisi, who will be taking you through our user-centered design. He will then hand over to Nick, who will be taking you through our stakeholder sessions, our minimum viable product, our initial costing, our initial costing, our revenue model, and Kickstarter campaign. We will then hand over to Ntombi and Noxie, who will then be taking you through the actual application and afterward and looking at the software testing. After this, we can then have questions. So just moving on to our teams. So this is a little bit of a team overview. That's Nick, our product owner, Davita, our lead analyst, Noxie, our lead developer, Ntombi, our lead software tester, and DC, our lead designer, and then myself, I'm the team lead. Together we are the Attainables. So, moving on to our team contract, just a little bit of a brief overview of what it contains. This was established earlier on in the year, but we have followed it through into the system development, and if need be, we can reflect back on it because it's what everybody said they would be doing. So just as a little bit of our team vision, our vision as a team is to produce consistently great work, striving to be the best, whilst being timely, as well as all members showing commitment and accountability. Other aspects of our team contract included the team structure, our code of conduct, any areas of participation and communication, our meeting guidelines, and then just the signing off just to say that they've seen us. That was just a little bit of extra. Moving on to our problem statement. Now this is where we first met with our stakeholders here. And this is from the user's perspective. We got user requirements from both the user side and from the administration side, just so that we could split everything up and see what both parties would like. So looking off the primary purpose of our app is to alert the community of suspicious activities in a specific location. And that was the premise for the app. So what had to be done was the ability for somebody to sign into the app, go onto the page, be able to type in or report an incident, and then to be able to view this from the community perspective on another page. The app had to be community friendly. At this point in time, they are currently using WhatsApp groups. The only problem with this is that it's limited to 100 members, and there are other aspects that we will cover a little bit later that WhatsApp is limiting. The focus needs to be on the community citizens and their protection. So we can't obviously can't ensure your protection, but the whole point is to alert you to these suspicions, and you can then take that into account when moving around the community and if there are any issues at present. The protection doesn't necessarily have to be from other individuals or people. It can be just any incidents like animals on the road, or goes as far as that. The app must be available 24/7. This may sound quite simple, but just to make sure that everybody's always able to access the app and everything's always up and running and they can have a look at everything. The app also needs to be free of charge. Because it is a community-focused app, nobody should be excluded from this. And that's why costing comes in, and that's why some of our options taken refer back to that costing element. Looking at it from the administration side, this is where we have to look at what the admin wanted out of the app and aspects that they wanted to come through. Obviously, it has to be community running, community focused. This is not an official SAPS or private security focused app, and we need to make sure that individuals understood that. The main functions are to alert the community of the suspicions, be able to respond to the community queries or respond to the incidents themselves, and to monitor the suspicions via the app. The uploading of pictures to administrators. One of the constraints was to be able to upload pictures to the administrators, but not to the whole app. We don't want everybody to be able to access those pictures just due to what I may deem as a suspicion, you may deem as defamation of character or anything like that. So we just have to make sure that we took that into account and that the pictures go to the administrators. The no user limit, that comes back to the WhatsApp constraint of 100 members per group, and you can imagine this concierge right now is transferring data from one group to another. She's got 5 groups running at this present time, so you can imagine how much that takes out of your day, especially when you've got a job. The ability to document events, just to be able to go back in time and look at everything and be able to hold people accountable for what they said or anything along those lines. Limited comments from the public. This comes back to the WhatsApp in the terms that if I post something, people can reply laissez-faire or laissez-faire, sorry, and just kind of say what they like. The problem with this and the problem with Facebook groups is that it can get out of hand. You can picture people start saying nasty things and it just becomes a battle. So we wanted people to be able to comment, so they have that interaction with the app, but limited in such a way that they can't take it too far. Lastly, the ability to send private messages to the user. This was an extra, but it was really nice to have in terms of that I can then send it to the specific member and they can send me further details as an administrator if there's anything that they were not sure about in the incident without us having to call or having to custom it. Moving on to our metaphor matrix. So this is where we take the metaphors along the top row, define what we looked at our app and what we tried to compare it to. All the attributes down the side take into account all of the problem statement aspects that I just discussed. Now, these combined both the user and the administration side. So it's a combination of the both. And from these, we established the 4 key objects and the Pearson triangles. After taking into account all of the aspects from the problem statements and comparing them to all the different metaphors that the app could potentially look like, we then came up with the idea that the app is mainly going to play on elements from the South African Police Service, from the current neighborhood watch system, and from the WhatsApp group. So we transferred this across. So looking at our 4 key objects, we did a 4 key objects exercise for each one of those metaphors along the top, but just for brevity's sake, making sure that we can get through everything quickly, we looked at the ones that we compared ourselves to, mainly, and then ours over here. So looking at the neighborhood watch, we found that the 4 key elements of a neighborhood watch, in our opinion, were to monitor a neighborhood, alert the community, to be able to document the incidents, and it needs to be community run. The South African Police Service, they want to be able to protect the public, respond to incidents, be able to handle any of these incidents, and record these incidents for later purposes. The WhatsApp group has the ability to send private messages over and above the group chat. It's free of charge. It's run by the community at this point in time, and you have the ability to upload the pictures or videos. Our application and the 4 key components of this were to be able to alert the community, the location aspect that was not part of one of these 3, but we took from another area of the metaphors, the ability to protect the community, and it needs to be free of charge, coming back to the community aspect. Looking at our Pearson triangles, I'm not going to take you through each step, but what we have over here, we have a representative and a referred, and together they make the interpret. Through the development of the app, we started to develop logos and IDs behind certain keywords. So I'll just be taking you through those quickly, and then Matisse will also be showing you in one of the slides, there's a development of how our app was designed and through the different sprints, how it developed. At first, we looked at the alert symbol and having a siren there. When we came to alerting citizens of suspicious behaviors, we take into account an icon that is portrayed similarly to an owl, because the owl is always alert and looking for suspicions in the night. The location element, which was extremely important, part of our 4 key objects, and we'll see how this portrays into our actual logo. Moving to the next slide. The element of being able to protect and a shield. At one stage we were thinking of naming the app the Graham style shield. The problem with this was that we were then limited to Graham style. And on recommendation of Ed, we wanted to be able to scale up the app at a further stage if possible, so making it citizen alert meant that we could do this. It needs to be available 24 hours. So what we got at the end was using a free app to alert the community of suspicious behaviors in a specific area, thereby protecting the community 24/7. And if we look at our application, the logo that we use, we've got a big C on the outer side which stands for a citizen member or community member, and then the inner A which stands for alert. But the A also has a second function. If we look at the pointing tip, it almost looks like the logo on the Google Maps, almost like that pinpoint. So that's where that came through. Looking at the Pearson triangles, we also looked at them from the admin side. There's quite a few aspects to take into account with this, so we just decided to look at the end product that we came from the Pearson triangles. What we got from the admin was an app with limited comments from the public, but capable of direct messages to users. The app is able to document events, has no user limit, and is able to send pictures. The core function is to alert citizens, respond to and monitor suspicious activities. The app is to be run by and focused towards the community. Thank you. I'll now be handing over to Davita, who will be taking you further.
Thanks, Chris. So, hi everyone. I am Davita and I'll be taking you through the sprint retrospective. So basically what a sprint retrospective is, when at the end of the sprint, the team gets together and we all basically discuss what worked for us, what didn't work for us, if we encountered any problems, and how did we solve those problems. So I'll be taking you through the sprint retrospectives, and I'll be doing it from sprint 1 right through to sprint 5. So basically, firstly, what worked was we split the development tasks, because we initially only had one developer and we found it was unfair if we just relied solely on her to develop everything. So for instance, with nice to haves, we would split those tasks. And then we'd still have defining roles for each member. So while we would be sharing tasks, each member still had their own responsibilities which had to be done. The daily Scrum meetings, those are really helpful because at the beginning of each day we would hold a meeting and basically just see what each team member did the previous day, what are they going to be doing today, and if they encountered any problems. And then with that we also updated the use cases, because as development went along, then we would have to change our use cases as well, because we'd either have to add use cases or remove use cases. And then again with the problems, we wouldn't only share problems amongst ourselves, but we would share it with the whole class as well, because we found that different people or different teams had different perspectives and different solutions of how we could solve these problems. And then also approaching master student ed, it was just really helpful for our team. Okay. And then what did not work? So basically, if any decisions were made spur of the moment, or literally just a conversation set up between Noxie and Chris, or Noxie and myself, and we decided on this, and then because it was such a quick conversation, we wouldn't really, or forget to mention it in the Scrum meeting the next day. So then later on in the project, then somebody come be like, hey, but what happened here? So that didn't work. Settling into the agile environment, simply because last year we did the whole waterfall approach, and then this year we started with the agile approach. So that took some adapting to. And then seeing as we split the development tasks, so once we've developed our code, then having to test it turned out to be an issue because a few of us had Android devices. But yeah. And then our problems and solutions for each sprint. So regarding sprint 1, we had the whole issue of having administrative roles. We weren't sure how to deal with that. So what we did was we established a 2-tier system. So tier 1, you would have 2 admin members, and basically what that would mean is those 2-tier admin members, they would then give permission to the 2nd-tier admin. And in 2nd-tier admin, they've got permission, for instance, to comment on, to do official comments, and also to change the instance status. Then posting of pictures. So we were unable to, we were unable to have the pictures be saved in a Fusion table. So at this point, we're looking at possibly using Twitter. We're still looking into it. And then another problem was we would have liked to have an in-app messaging component. So we were looking also at Twitter or an SMS functionality at this point. And also we wanted to have both user comments and like a like counter. Well, it was not a like counter, but basically the user, they can tap to say that either they saw it to good job and thank you. So they're just acknowledging that they've seen the report. So we weren't able to have them both. So what we decided on doing is we we remove user comments, and then with that we'd have official comments where the administrators can comment, and then we'd still have our like counters. And then the member type, this was basically changing it from when a report is being, when an incident is being reported, so either choosing between being a student or community member. But with that, we were, what we thought of was, what happens if it's a student and they have been living in Grahamstown their whole lives? So there's that fine line, like what do they choose? So for this, what we did was we created a date of birth. So then this means that you can still see which age groups have reported incidences. Then for sprint 2, so here we weren't sure on how we should develop our screen for password, or what should be done with password, because if we wanted to do it from like sending it from an email, the only problem was we didn't have a source email to send it to the user. So what we did there was we would have it display on the screen, so it would retrieve, or it will take the username, and then from there it'll give you the password. Knox will show you that just now. And then terms and conditions, at this point we had reached our limit of 10 screens. So what we did was on our disclaimer screen we simply had a link which then took the user to the terms and conditions. And then here again, posting of pictures. Here it was definite we were going to use Twitter, and we had looked further into that. In-app messaging, we found that the sending of an SMS was going to be costly, and then we used Twitter instead. The incident, so we had that working, but now the problem was linking the incident with the live counters and being able to have an infinite, like a scrollable screen. Unfortunately, we couldn't have that, so what we decided was we'd do 5 incidents per screen, and then simply the user just presses next each time. Sprint 3. Okay, so this was the geolocation. This is basically being able to pinpoint where you are using the GPS. So we knew we wanted it to go from static to non-static, but we just weren't sure how, so research had to be done on that, and quite a bit of trial and error had to be done as well. Push notifications. This was a request which was received quite late or far in the development, so we simply saw that as scope creep, and we found that we were scared that it might hinder our timeline. And then help option was a similar problem to that of terms and conditions, so again we just had a link in the top corner where it links the user to the Google Doc. Yeah. And then sprint 4 and 5. So we did try, we had meetings, but unfortunately we would get interrupted due to the student protests. But by this time, majority of the development was already complete, and basically we were just integrating the design elements as well as doing the documentation. Yeah. So this is our sprint, our statistics, like our burnout chart, burnout chart. So basically, in sprint 1, we did our basic functionality first. So over here, okay, you can't see it here, but we had a velocity of, I think, 1.5. And then in sprint 2, that increased. In sprint 2, we had a lot more user stories, and that was also a lot of our, I think, core functionality which we had there, and that increased to 2, and then 3 again, that stories got moved around, and then 4 was the protests, and then 5 we kind of just put everything together, and yeah. And then for the burn up chart, so this is basically trying to reach a specific point. So as you can see, it was first, during the first sprint, it was first 150 points, and then as the sprint went along, we added use cases, user stories, we removed some user stories, and then eventually we got to, you can't see it in the graph, but our grand total was 185 points. So basically the burn-up chart is letting you go to a specific goal for your project, or like points-wise. And then the burn-up chart is basically the opposite. So now instead of going up towards 185, you want to go down 185 through right down to 0. And as you can see, we've completed our project. Yeah. And then just show you our easy backlog. So I'll show you.
Just exit the PowerPoint. Is it escape?
our product backlog. And our themes, as Chris mentioned, we link them to our key object. So for instance, these are really the main themes. So for instance, report an incident, that was part of alert. And then we had view incident, which was protect, and incident map, which was location. And over here you can see what we did is we allocated 5 points per team member per day. So for instance, yeah, there's 185 points, and then we got to a grand total of about 310,000. Yeah, that's that. I'll be handing over to Badisi. Thank you.
Nice. 20 years old. Hope we're feeling good today. Okay, I'll be taking you through the design of the whole interface and everything. Okay. So the first thing that we looked at was the approach into how we're going to design the whole thing. So what we did is we used the user-centered design kind of approach, where we focus on the user themselves, and also we focused on the usability of the app itself. So what we did is, because we were focusing on the user, what we did, we used a tool called NinjaMock, where you can prototype or just show the mock-ups of the whole design of the whole app. So in each one, this is the first kind of design that we came up with. So because we were focused on looking at what the user wants, Okay, so because we were focusing on what the user wants and what the client wants, so we created the first initial design, and then we went to our client and started asking, what do you think about the first design? Sorry, I keep clicking on that. So what do you think about the first design? And then we had a session as well where we, and then we looked at that, and then I consulted also the development team, where I saw what works with the development team and what couldn't work, and then tried to strike the balance between what the client wants and then what the development team can actually do. So we even changed the logo, the buttons, because really it doesn't link up to a community watch or neighborhood watch kind of thing. So we kept changing and trying to understand what the client wants, and the client also wanted something that was that had the colors blue, gray, and white. So whatever we were trying to design, we always made sure that we incorporate the different colors in there, such as those colors for Facebook and everything. So we tried to, as closer we went toward the different sprints, we tried to find the logo that's kind of closer to what a neighborhood watch would have. For example, in sprint 3, we had something with an owl there. So it's always watching, and we tried to find a name as well, which was Citizen Watch, see the owl that is watching there. But there were other concerns that came up, such as superstitions, because community members were going to use the app. So we thought about superstition. People wouldn't use wouldn't use an app with an owl. So we tried to find something that's closer to our app, and then that could describe our app. So that's how we came into this design of the logo. So further on, oh no, you're not working. Okay, further on, we looked into design theory itself in order to understand the different practices that we need, or the different guidelines that we could use into our design. So we looked at principles such as Fitts Law, which kind of, we used that part of design theory for our buttons. So what with this theory is, always make sure that your buttons are large and that they are within the common kind of user area where most people would use their fingers. So our buttons, we made sure that our buttons are within the middle of the screens and below, which are the most common places that people actually use buttons. Other principle that we looked at in design theory was Hicks' law, and this one was just encouraging us to kind of use simplistic kind of interface, not something that's not too much, such as this one, for example. There, all you need is you need to view the different incidences on the map. So there's nothing distracting you from just looking at the map. There's no other unnecessary functionality there. And then the other thing that we looked at was Dr. Jakob Nelson's 10 heuristics, so that we made sure that our design itself kind of had guidelines. We didn't want to just freestyle design and just come up with things that are not according to guidelines. So we used Nelson's 10 heuristics to make sure that our app is within certain design guidelines. So with visibility of system status, we made sure that on each and every page there's a heading indicating where the particular user is, so that they know what they're doing. When you're clicking a button, it's actually clear that you need to click that button, for example. The second one was match the real world. We made sure that we used common language, because this will not only be used by students, but the community members as well. And yeah, so that's just a screenshot of the app itself, using common language that's understandable to people, and then the other thing with matching the real world is making sure that everything flows in a natural and logical kind of thing. So from your name to your last name to email, etc. Making sure that the user has control and freedom over the app itself. So just for example, if you have an incident, you were reporting an incident and you found that you made an error, for example, the user has the option to discard the incident, so always making sure that the design doesn't trap the user into a particular thing, or giving the user an option to confirm before committing to a particular decision or control. The other one is consistency, making sure that, for example, that we're using conventional kind of standards. For example, when you're clicking this one, you are calling, because that's a common icon that's used for calling, for example. And the other thing with consistency is making sure that we're using the same colors, the same button sizes for particular buttons. And the other one was we made sure that there's error prevention. So I think that one's a bit clear though. Making sure that you eliminate errors that the user can do. Then using recognition rather than recall, for example. Sorry. Here, we had the option of using a checkbox for the GPS locator. Instead of the user having to remember that particular street that they're in where they're reporting that particular incident, instead they can just check on the GPS locator, and then that's the purpose of apps, to make the job easier for the user. And that one is just saying that the app should be simple, only the relevant information should be on a particular page. There shouldn't be unnecessary things distracting the user from the main purpose of that particular page. And then we made sure that on every page there is a help button on top of it, just in case something happens and the user needs help on using that particular part of the app. Yeah, and I'll give over to Nick to take the sessions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Wandisi. Wandisi is our designer. I think you did a really good job. So I'm gonna keep it on schedule. My name's Nicholas. I'm the product owner. I was the one who met with our stakeholder, Melanie Kutzer. She's a lovely stakeholder and she's very considerate. Basically my role was to gather requirements of the application and then to manage expectations. So there were 6 meetings held with Melanda, and from this thorough understanding of what the actual minimum viable product was. Our only aim of these meetings was to keep the stakeholder informed. We wanted to make sure Melinda knew exactly what was happening with the development of the application throughout the whole process, and in that sense, making her part of the team by giving her decisions and making her voice heard. And then the simple formula that we followed was KSE. So K stands for knowledge, S stands for strategy, and E stands for execution. So through knowledge, we'll gather the requirements, what the actual app needed, the content, and through that, we would implement and create a strategy in order to implement following content, and then execute. Our minimum viable product, we just wanted to, they're going to go through it in the application, but I just wanted to show and give an example of how our initial MVP and our core fundamentals were, and then what we actually produced. So the initial MVP was a sign-in screen, a sign-up screen for the user, a display on the screen, ensuring that they know that this is not an official SAPS app, a main menu with all the buttons, a report incident screen where the user can report the incident, a view incident screen where they can view the incidents that occurred, and then an update detail screen if the users need to change their profile or change any of the details later on. And then what were nice to have in the beginning, we actually produced, and we gave our word, because this is community driven, and it can actually make a difference in Grandson. So we gave it our extra effort. We managed to add in-app messaging, a geolocation feature which recorded the coordinates, the current latitude and longitude, which then stored it in the Fusion table and then was able to display it on the map screen. And then you can click on the pin and see all the different details of what that incident occurred. And then we also produced a website with an editable map for admins to be able to see the incidents on a map, and they can sort of give them a high-level view of what's going on. And it also included the terms and conditions and the whole manual. And then we also produced a useful contact screen, which basically gave details of numbers that if in an emergency, people were able to have numbers on their app and they could phone. And then with regards to costing, I'll keep this short. Basically, we went to an app, it's called How to Make an App. We put in a set of inputs that our app took into consideration, and it gave us a cost of $359,800. But with us staying on schedule, working well, we managed to reduce that to $310,800. Our revenue model, basically, humans derive incentives as the motive. So basically, how we were going to attain this $310,800, we would look at private security companies in the Grandson area, such as Hightech, and bring them into the app, not give them ownership, but make them part of it. We could always do like fairs where we promote the app, or we could have merchandise deals, that sort of thing. Current neighborhood watches, we did our research. There's 2 Facebook groups at the moment, with a sum total of about 800 to 1,000 users. That's 1,000 users that want the specific feature. They have security on their mind, you know what I mean? So those are 1,000 students that would be, or 1,000 people you could say, that are in demand for this application. Then we looked at government grants, and there were 2 government grants that we could look at. And then crowdfunding, we created a Kickstarter campaign, but our time's running short. It's basically we just gave a video, and it's for international eyes to bring basically our app to abstract it higher. So not just Grandson, but we could have a Guard. And then, as I said, if there's time, I'll show you the Kickstarter campaign. I'd now like to hand over to Noxie and Tombi, who's going to go through the actual demonstration of our software that we created. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is our developer, and I am the software tester. So basically, her role is to do the programming, most of the programming, but we split the roles. So some of us, we did some functionalities, and my role is actually to do software testing, to test the app, the functionality, and to make sure that the user is satisfied with what is going on, and identifying the errors documenting them, making changes as updates go on. So what we focused more on was the functionality, since we're using the agile approach, which means less documentation, more functionality. So Noxie will take you through the development, and I'll be talking through in terms of the software testing that was done in the app.
Okay, hi guys. So once you've downloaded the app and you open it, sorry. Sorry. So once you download the app and you open it for the first time, yes, this is the screen that you get. But if you're a first-time user, you then have to go into the sign up screen. And basically here, you then have to enter all your details and sign up on there. But the few validation rules that we did do on here, because we didn't have a lot of them, we just checked that, because it's an Android-based application, so everybody that uses has an email address. So you have to enter an email address that is valid. So during some research, we checked that all email addresses that currently exist don't have any digits after the last @. So that was one of the validation rules that we did. So your email address has to have an @, it has to have dots in there, and it can't have digits after the @ sign. And then we also did for cell phone number, we just basically, since it's currently Grahamstown, which is in SA, we just said that you have to enter a 10-digit cell phone number that starts with a 0 instead of the whole +27 confusion there. And with the date, we just gave you the date picker so that you have it there already and you can't accidentally put it in the wrong format that the app would then bring up errors. And in terms of username, we wanted the username to be unique in such a way that when you report the incident and the admin people are busy checking the incidences that have been reported, they aren't being confused by 5 people who have the same username and they don't know who is reporting what. And then in terms of password, we didn't have any specific validation, just that you have to enter your password in twice so that you're sure what your password is. And when you're signing up for the first time, you can see the password that you're entering. Okay, so assuming you're a person who already has used the app before and you exist on the users table, you would go onto this screen and you would enter your username and your password, and you would just click on sign in and it would just take you there.
Okay, in terms of this screen that you see here, some testing was done obviously to make sure everything is running smoothly and it does meet the requirements of the user. For example, each of these buttons, for example, the sign-in screen, when you click on the sign-in, before you can sign in, the app checks the username is there and the password is there. So what testing came into, it came into looking at the error messages, whether the error messages are giving like information that is useful to the user. The user is guided in a manner that they know what to do, they don't get lost in the app. The other one was in terms of, for example, forgetting a password. So when you forget a password, you have to put in a username. If you don't put in your username, the app will tell you, please input your username, and that actually helps the user to know what to do next. When the username has been inputted, okay, and you click forgot password, oh, that's one of the errors, we're just highlighting it one more time. So, which is, okay, we make sure that the user is redirected not only to a page, but to the right page. Because imagine, you say, you click on the forgot password page, and the next thing what appears is view incident. How confusing is that? That's why testing is very useful. And the other buttons that are linked to other screen, which is like integrated testing was done in terms of are the buttons linked to the right strings, are the buttons linked to the right functionalities, like as we use the app as a user, and it's easy to use for you and you understand what exactly you're doing with the app. So in terms of the email address, there are some validations that the app takes into account. you have to enter in the email address and the cell phone number so that your password can be displayed and you can go back and log in. But what this does, it doesn't actually log in for you, it just displays the password of which you can just write it down, and when you're done writing it down, then you can close the error message, you can close the message and then start logging in again.
Okay, before I log in, we just added the disclaimer screen on this page, because when you log in for the first time as a new user, you get directed to the disclaimer screen. That's the first thing you see once you've logged in and created your account. And then from there you go there to the main menu and you use the app. But if you're a regular user, it would get very annoying if every time you sign in, you get directed to the disclaimer screen. But then you get those users who sometimes want to see the disclaimer screen again. So then we've put it on here so that if you wanted to have a look at it some other time, you can have a look at it on there. And we've put the terms and conditions as a link, which directs you to a website that has that documentation that you can have a look at. And if you look at it from the signing up screen, it just gives you a back button that you can just click on and it takes you back to signing up. So if, like me, you already exist on the table and you're a user, you can just sign in. And the app just checks that both your username and password are correct. And if they are both correct, you can easily sign in and it will take you to the main menu screen. And then on here, depending on what you want to do, and the buttons are easily visible and they're big enough so that you don't accidentally click on the wrong button. So for example, if you just wanted to see the incidences that currently have been reported, they are shown from most recent to the oldest incidences on there. And the way they show them is they say who has reported what and where. And we have official comment section, which only admin people can make a comment. So if you're not admin, you will type things on there and it will actually type and it won't submit it. So unfortunately there's that. And then also on the incident status, only admin people can change the incident status. So that's just for communicating between the admin and the people who are in charge of the app and the actual users of the app to see that there is actual communication and the admin people are reading what the users have reported. In terms of the users, because we wanted to have it in such a way that they can still have some input, we have 3 buttons on there. And that's just for making it easier for both the user and the admin. So instead of having 10 people reporting the same incident, and if one person has reported the incident, the other 10 people can just click on I saw it too, so that they know how many people have gone through that incident. And if, for example, if the status was suspicion solved, the user could then click on thank you or good work. So that's just more for appreciation for the admin people that have done the work. How we've done it, just for screen maximum sakes, we've put 5 incidences at a time, and then the user can use the next button to show. Please don't mind the actual incidences, so there's no for testing. So
people died.
so that was more for testing purposes. So it shows 5 incidences at a time, and you can just keep on clicking next until you get the next 5. And if you happen to get to the last page and you try to click next, it just tells you that there's no more incidences. You've reached the end of the incident list, just so that you know you're at the end and you not just keep on clicking next and nothing is happening. Okay. So we have a useful contact screen, and that was more for our client who wanted to make sure that there was an actual page where if the user was using the app and they needed to make an urgent call, that the incident they're seeing has turned into a crime and not just a suspicion. So then they can actually click on the buttons and it shows the number over it. They can click on the button and it actually makes the call. And we've double checked that the numbers are correct, because at first we didn't have the right numbers, but then making sure that you actually calling a number that exists is also a very important thing. And at the bottom we've added the Twitter messaging aspect, which is for the in-app messaging. So if they wanted to make a message directly onto admin, they would use the Twitter function, which is the cheaper route of going, rather than the whole SMS route, which would cost the user money. And on here, it just sends a message to the citizen alert Twitter application, which is handled by the admin people, and they are the only ones who see the messages.
Okay. In terms of testing, just a bit from the previous page where you view incidents, the buttons that were there. Thank you. The buttons that are here that are available for users to like, we just test it in order to make sure that the user can only like each of these buttons once, and to make sure that there is a counter that shows how many users have liked that specific button. Like for example, you don't report the incident like 100 times, so one person reports it, and then there's other people say I saw it too. Then the number of likes might reflect the number of people that have seen that incident, and how important that incident is, and who has seen it when. In terms of the screen, so we make sure that the screen is actually user-friendly. The user can see like what is going on, and it's very specific and it's up to date. For example, C-Dog has just reported an incident, so you know who has reported the incident, where they're from, and what the incident is about. And in terms of the statuses, we've checked that the statuses that are there are actually the ones that were described in the requirements. And in terms of the submit button, we actually make sure that whenever the administrator does make a comment, the button works and it actually submits the official comment, and every user can view it but not add any comments. So we made sure that actually works. And then on the next page, which is okay, in terms of here, like the useful contacts page, there is a Twitter messaging. So when the user ticks the box, then the Twitter is enabled, and then they can actually log in, send in the direct messages. Okay, this is the page that they get redirected into, so you can log in, or else there is also a link whereby you can just add a Twitter account if you're just a new user and you haven't used Twitter. Or you can just view the messages, of which it shows the messages that have been reported on the Twitter about the incident, and also unfortunately it does show the messages like on your Twitter, personal Twitter. But then it is your own responsibility to use Twitter, and if anything shows to the unnecessary person, if you have followers that you don't want them to see things, so you rather unfollow them. I don't know.
Okay, so we've added a profile plus screen, which is for updating your details. So here it's just, it first gives you a message that says all of your details will be shown on there, just so that you know what your current details on the app are. Because sometimes you forget what email address you put in, or what phone number you put in, and now it's changed. So it currently just shows you what your current details are, and you can change them however you like, and then it still does the same validation as when you're signing up for the first time with your own email and phone number. And we've made it in such a way that you can't change your username, because your username is unique, and you can't change your date of birth because it shouldn't change anyway. So that's the only two things that we don't allow you to change. Everything else you can change it. And then if you make any changes, you can just click on the save, and it just resaves your information onto the table, and it just tells you that your information has been saved. And when you click OK, it takes you back into the main menu screen.
As any other button, the previous from this page, the error message, we tested some of the error messages, because sometimes, when the programmer is just typing an error message, and then sometimes you look at the error message and you just try to make sure, does it communicate to the user, does it communicate to the average user, can you actually understand what is going on, because this is for the community. It's not, for example, people who are in university. Some of us may understand the jargon, but some of us may not. So that was it from that page.
Okay, so if you want to report an incident, the first thing it does is it tells you to switch on your location sensor. And this, we did this because we have the map feature also on there. And also because we have the two options of either using the GPS location or you typing in your street name. And the problem we had with that was if you typed in the street name, we didn't have the coordinates of where it was. So the reason for that pop-up message at the beginning was so that whether you typed it in or used the GPS location sensor, we still got the GPS location coordinates for the map. On here, we try to make it easier for the user and less error messages for typing in things. So in terms of selecting the suspicion type, we gave you the different options on there and you would choose one. So depending on whether you're reporting a suspicious car, suspicious person or group of people, or even an animal, like there's very bizarre things that people report. So, and then we have other for really, really bizarre things that people report. And then, so you would just click on the GPS location sensor, and I hope it does not take long, because sometimes it takes very long. There we go. So, and that would just tell you where you are if you click that next. So for example, if say it's a person that you're reporting, and then you click on that, and say you don't want to add an image because the person would see you taking the picture of there, so you decide not to do that, then you just add a description saying maybe Bandisi. So that would be your description, and then you would click on submit. And then once you submit the incident, it will tell you that thank you for reporting the incident, and it will go into the incident reporting page and show you the incidences that are currently on there. And like I said earlier, it starts with the most recent incidences to the oldest ones. However, if you were thinking of reporting an incident and you go through all the motions, you go through all of them, and you're very serious about it, but you get to the end and you decide that, maybe I don't want to report this specific incident. You can actually, there you go. So you can discard the incident if you feel that most of the details you've entered on there were wrong and you don't feel like going through each one and changing it, but you want to redo the process again. You can just discard them and it just clears all the fields. And you can, from there, go back to the main menu. And then we also have a function which views the incidences in an incident map. So as opposed to viewing them on a list with the details of each incident, it views them on a map, and you can click on each specific dot and it shows you the details of it. So if you wanted an overview of the whole, of how the incidences have been reported, where the incidences have been reported, you can go about it in that way. And you can change the settings to show boldings as opposed to that, so you can zoom in and see the actual area that the incidences have been reported in.
Looks like the Hamilton building's a hotspot for
There's a lot of incidences that have been happening there. And just the same as with the signing in screen, we decided to have a disclaimer button on here as well, so that if you've already signed in and you feel like you want to view the disclaimer screen, you can do that from here as well. Okay. Every single screen has this button on top here called help, and that is just if you need help with using the app, you would click on that screen and it would take you onto a document on Google Docs that has the actual help. And then on here, you just go to whichever part you needed help on, read that, and then you can go back into the app if you feel like you've been helped with that.
Okay, just to summarize, in terms of this app, so there were many changes that were made. This is the final version. So everything that was made was documented. You see in the document. Every change that was made, I think this is the better version. So, and also in terms of the user acceptance testing, what is user acceptance testing is when the user and actually the development team, they test together to see whether the user is satisfied, are there any changes that have to be made. I'm happy to say that Ms. Kote was part of that. Chris and Nick made that successful, and actually the feedback was that she's very happy, and yeah. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Just before we move on to examination and the users, why did you not show us any Twitter stuff?
Did you show that? You go through it?
I'd like to see what that looks like.
Okay, so go through, yeah.
There's all my dirty messages and the private messages.
So if we go, so let's start with
That's one.
useful contact.
That's fine.
So what happens, firstly, when you click on Twitter for the first time, so, it does bring up, I think it's, yes, it is bringing it up. It brings up this page. Before I log in, we've already logged in once just to save the hassle on that. Your username and password for Twitter will be over there, and you insert those, and then it authorizes the app. Now, Twitter has a backend that allows us to then feed into it. If you are not a user of Twitter, the option at the top right on that screen, don't worry about going back, there's an option to sign up to Twitter, so you can actually sign up at that point in time. So we're going from the premise that some people may not be users and may want to become users. The reason why we use Twitter was because it was actually it had everything that we needed to do from this functionality, and building in that message has just been a little bit too much for us, so we piggybacked on them, thankfully. When we go to the showing messages, it's showing your private messages in the Twitter feed. So these are everything that have been sent to me. We had problems with filtering them out in terms of other usernames. You actually see Sosa sent me a message the other day saying just to make sure that when I was testing the system that it actually sent. So these are messages that have been sent to me. When you, if you scroll up a little bit, when you type in a message there and send it sends it directly to the Citizen Alert admin, and it goes to then the actual in-app messaging, so it doesn't get displayed on the timeline. Also, the way we have set up the Twitter account is that the news feed, the front-end feed of the Twitter, has no followers and is blocked off, so you cannot see what's posted. So if you're posting an image, which we do via the reporting incident page, the image goes onto your Twitter account. We couldn't override this, and it goes into the Citizen Alert page. So your followers can see what you have posted, unless you have changed your Twitter settings. I do believe we have put that in the help manual or the terms and conditions, just so that they know and that there are alerts of this. But then from the Citizen Alert side, once it's on the Citizen Alert wall, nobody can view that apart from the administrators who have the administrator password or who have been given access to follow. We made that specific that you have to be given access to follow them, which will be the administrator members who need to see it. We did have to take this into consideration with the taking of pictures and suspicions and all of that, and ensuring that people just use this, keep this in mind when posting, because obviously the whole issue of defamation of character, we didn't want people to get into trouble with that. So yeah, that's basically how Twitter goes. So we have two options: the ability to select an image from your memory bank. So I'm not too sure how it's going to work on Nox's phone, but you go, it takes you through to. Okay.
Yeah, what did you say?
Graham sounds most notorious.
There we are. Unfortunately, we had issues with it posting on the side, but when it goes through to Twitter for some reason, it's all fine. So we weren't too sure how to overcome that. Obviously, when it's Twitter, it's activated as soon as you untick it, it deactivates Twitter. So then, obviously, the pictures won't be sent through to the Twitter feed. We have set up on the Twitter account to put a hashtag with the username and a hashtag with the suspicion type. So if you would like to filter incidents on the actual citizen alert page, you can do that. So you can say anything sent by CDOG, which is me, then they can see any pictures that I have posted, and the suspicion types, if we want to pull up, is it people or dogs or whatever, if it's animals, we can actually then take that through. So that actually gets through, so we're able to then filter things on Twitter if we would like to see any specific activities. And if you search via the hashtag like persons, then we can see if actually somebody's cropping up all the time, and then we can actually, the police can then be notified about that.